The acid bath murderer. My life as John George Haigh. To the world, I was a businessman. To my victims, I was the end. I was born on July 24th, 1909 in Stamford, Lincolnshire. My parents raised me in a strict, religious household where sin was an ever-present shadow. They told me the world was evil, that I was special, set apart. I believed them for a time. But as I grew older, I realized the world was not evil. It was opportunity waiting to be taken. By the 1940s, I had perfected my craft. Fraud was my first love, an art of persuasion and deception. But fraud alone didn't satisfy me. It wasn't enough to take money. I wanted more. I wanted the complete erasure of those who stood in my way. My first victim, William McSwan, was an acquaintance from the 1930s. He owned a few arcade businesses, a lucrative operation. I convinced him to come to my workshop under the pretense of discussing a business deal. There, I struck him from behind and ended his life quickly. But disposal was my real art. I placed his body into a steel drum and poured concentrated sulfuric acid over it. Over the next 2 days, the acid dissolved him completely. What was left, I poured down a drain. It was as if he had never existed. The McSwan's disappearance was easy to explain. I told William's parents he had fled to Scotland to avoid the draft. But their concern grew, and so did my greed. I invited them to my workshop under the same pretense and ended their lives just as efficiently. 3 lives erased, and their wealth transferred to me. I moved on to more victims. Dr. Archibald Henderson, a retired doctor, and his wife, Rosalie. They were wealthy and trusting, the perfect targets. I lured them to my workshop, promising lucrative property deals. Their bodies dissolved in acid, their belongings sold off to fund my lifestyle. I always chose people who wouldn't be missed or who had significant assets. I kept meticulous records, forging documents to transfer their possessions into my name. It was almost too easy, like a game where I held all the pieces. But arrogance is every predator's downfall. My final victim, Olive Duran Deacon, was my undoing. She was wealthy and eccentric, a widow who trusted too easily. When she disappeared, her friends grew suspicious. The police searched my workshop and found evidence of my crimes, a ledger of false transactions, human remains, and traces of acid too damning to ignore. I confessed, of course. Why wouldn't I? I believed that without a body, there could be no crime. I was wrong. The forensic evidence was overwhelming, and in 1949, I was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to hang. On August 10, 1949, I faced the gallows at Wandsworth Prison. I showed no fear. My story ended as it began, in silence. I am John George Haigh, the acid bath murderer. I turned greed into art, trust into opportunity, and life into nothingness.